Hi everybody, the Paris Olympics are taking the world by a storm.
All eyes are on Paris.
We're talking about the Paris Olympics now.
We want to welcome you to the 2024 Summer Olympic Games.
Biggest sporting extravaganza, the Olympics.
What an incredible event it's been here.
The world's biggest sporting event, the pinnacle of sport for thousands of athletes who are hoping to make history for themselves and their countries.
The US viewership of the opening ceremony alone saw a total of 41.5 million viewers. India is expected to see 150 million viewers on JioCinema alone, and India is winning a medal every single week.
Indian shooters continue to shine at the Paris Olympics.
In blue from India.
Nabhakar scripted history by becoming the only Indian to win 2 medals in a single Olympics campaign.
Third medal for India at the Paris Olympics.
We bagged another medal. India is now looking to set a historic benchmark at this edition.
And amongst this hype, Nita Ambani supported India's interest in hosting the Summer Olympics in 2036. Now this seems like an insane move, right? We could host one of the biggest events in the world. Millions of tourists will flock to India. India would become the epicenter of global attention. Tourism would increase. We would make millions of dollars, and the entire world would witness the grand Indian growth story, right? Well, I hate to break it to you, but all of this is utter nonsense. Because you know what? The Olympics is actually an economic disaster for the host country. You don't believe me? Look at this. While Beijing's 2008 Summer Olympics cost over $42 billion, it generated only $3.6 billion in revenue. While Vancouver's Winter Games in 2010 cost $7.6 billion, it generated only $2.8 billion. And London's Summer Games in 2012 cost $18 billion but generated only $5.2 billion in revenue. So with each passing Olympics, the host country bleeds with billions of dollars in losses. So the question is, how can such a grand world event become a loss-making venture? Why is there such a false hype around the economics of Olympics? And most importantly, why is hosting the Olympics an economic disaster for India? This video is brought to you by the 1% Club. People just like the Olympics, understanding where to invest your money is very crucial because one bad decision can ruin your life. This is the reason why financial literacy is very, very important. Now, after having filed your taxes, you must have realized that better financial planning could save you a lot of money. And now is the time to start planning your finances and be better prepared for the next tax season. Here's where 1% Club comes in, which is founded by my dear friend Sharan. The 1% Club is India's largest finance community. It's trusted by over 50,000 members, and their vision is to teach us what schools and colleges don't, which is how to achieve financial independence. So if you want to experience the 1% Club, they are hosting an exclusive Retire Early Masterclass by Sharan. This masterclass will teach you everything about personal finance, early retirement, asset allocation, and tax saving hacks. This will help you take the first step towards financial independence. And just for thinkschool learners, there's an exclusive 50% discount. So if you want to achieve financial independence, register for the masterclass using the link in my description. Chalo, let's start by understanding why do countries host the Olympics in the first place. This is a story that starts with the curious case of 1984 when Los Angeles hosted the Summer Olympics. And by the end of this event, they ended up with a hefty profit of $232 million. That's worth more than $700 million today. So when Los Angeles made such a hefty profit, it became an aspiration for all other countries across the world. And now, even if the Olympics directly don't result into a profit, they say that the economic benefits that Olympics brings to a particular country, that is unparalleled. And many politicians often say that it is a catalyst to push a particular city 5 years into the future. For example, in 2016, the Olympics in Brazil impacted around 2,200 micro and small businesses who received 390 million Brazilian real in contracts. Eventually, 18,000 new jobs were created. Similarly, when Barcelona hosted the games in 1992, its general unemployment rate fell from 18.4% to 9.6% between 1986 and 1992. And even the Paris Olympics of 2024 is estimated to create 181,000 jobs. The second reason why countries host the Olympics is branding and propaganda. And you know this already from our Qatar case study from 2022. But if you forgot the case study or if you don't know about this case study, here's a very simple explanation of the same. Here's how Hitler used the Olympics as a genius marketing strategy.
The city of Berlin was awarded the auspicious task of hosting the 1936 Summer Olympic Games. It would be the first time a host nation would project its political ideology and power onto the world.
The German athletes were soldiers on the propaganda battlefield.
Berlin is cleaned up. Anti-Jewish signs were removed. Everything was done to create the impression that this was a hospitable climate.
No one could have predicted was that these games would be used as a tool for some of the slickest propaganda by one of the most tyrannical regimes the world has ever seen.
People in 1923, Germany had witnessed a horrendous condition of hyperinflation, and it was so bad that in 1922, 160 German marks was equivalent to $1. But by November 1923, which is just 1 year later, the currency of Germany depreciated to such an extent that to buy $1, you needed 4.2 trillion German marks. So obviously, because of hyperinflation, there were no jobs, people were dying out of hunger, and it was a catastrophe that Germany had never seen before. So the entire world saw Germany as a poor country with no bread. But in the next 10 years, Germany had become a far richer country, and they wanted to show the world that they were no longer a poor country. So Germany won the bid for hosting the 1936 Olympics in 1931. But here's where Germany was in for a surprise. In 1933, Hitler became the dictator of Germany.
On the 30th of January 1933, Hitler became German Chancellor.
The German people see him as a savior.
Hitler propagated his racial ideology early on.
He insisted that one group was to blame for the nation's post-war misfortunes: the Jews.
Directing it against anyone he saw as alien to the German nation.
And the entire world had heard rumors about racism against the Jews. But this is when the propaganda minister of Hitler saw the Olympics as the best opportunity to show three things to the world. Number one, they wanted to show what new Germany under Hitler looked like. Number two, they wanted to prove that dictatorship of Hitler was far better than the democracies in Europe. And lastly, they wanted to market the idea of Aryan race to the world. And here's the most ironic act of all. Hitler actually released hundreds of pigeons in the ceremony as a message of peace to the world. And guess what? The 1936 Olympics was the first Olympic event to be broadcasted on television, so it was by far the most powerful tool of propaganda. On top of that, during the games, the signs of banning Jews from public places had disappeared, and the Germans were ordered to be very nice to everyone, especially the African Americans. Why? Because back then there was ongoing racism against the black athletes in the US and Europe. But when these athletes came to Germany, they were delighted to see the kind of respect and hospitality that they got. So when they went back home, the stories of equality and hospitality of Germany traveled all across the world. In fact, one of these athletes even quoted to the press that Germany treated him so well that he didn't have to sit at the back of the bus. Similarly, many reporters wrote incredible things about Germany in all newspapers across the world. And just like Hitler wanted, people actually saw how much Germany had developed in just 13 years in spite of witnessing the worst economic crisis in its history. So this gave Hitler both a voice on the global stage and earned him even more respect among the German public. This is how, ladies and gentlemen, sports washing works. This is the first method of branding. But guys, not all hosts are evil, okay? They do it sometimes for real branding. For example, South Korea held the Seoul Olympics in 1988 to show off its economic miracle. For those who don't know, from 1975 to 1988, the South Korean economy grew at such an incredible pace that it grew from just $21 billion in 1975 to almost $200 billion in 1988. That's a staggering growth of 10x in just 12 years. On top of that, South Korean companies like Samsung and Hyundai were leading the tech revolution in the world. And during the same time, North Korea was struggling because of dictatorship. So to demonstrate to the world that South Korea was a free capitalist nation open for investment, they hosted the Olympics of 1988. So you know what happened after that? 1988 was the first year that the foreign direct investment in country crossed $1 billion, and since then it kept on increasing and increased up to $11.5 billion in 2000. This is how Olympics acted as a catalyst of investment and growth for South Korea. Similarly, the 1964 Tokyo Olympics in Japan was meant to symbolize the rise of Japan from the ashes of World War II. In 1972, the Munich Olympics in Germany was a part of an effort to promote the idea of New West Germany that was free from the impacts of World War II, and China used it to sports wash its image of Uyghur Muslim persecution. This is the second reason why nations host the Olympics in spite of losses, which is branding. And finally, Olympics serve as a catalyst of tourism. And just to tell you how powerful the Olympics is, here's an example of Barcelona. People, in 1990, Barcelona was the 13th most popular destination in Europe. But in 1992 Summer Olympics, the broadcasters highlighted all the non-sports venues in Barcelona. This was a big marketing boost for Barcelona. And even after the Olympics got over, they kept on marketing Barcelona to the world. Eventually, by 2010, Barcelona became the 5th most popular destination on the continent. So this sounds amazing, right? Great PR, massive investments, and an insane tourism boost. So it's a great idea to host the Olympics, right? But even then, why do economists say that Olympics are bad for the economy? And why is Olympics hosting bad for India? Well, as it turns out, the Olympics being profitable and boosting the economy is the story of the past. And in the recent times, the cost of hosting the Olympics have shot up so much that, like I said before, Beijing's 2008 Summer Olympics cost over $42 billion. It generated only $3.6 billion in revenue. While Vancouver's Winter Games in 2010 cost $7.6 billion, it generated only $2.8 billion. And London's Summer Games in 2012 cost $18 billion but generated only $5.2 billion in revenue. And today, Olympics are so bad for the economy that they could practically cause an economic crisis in a country. So the question over here is, how did Olympics become such a terrible waste of money? Well, the first reason is the rise of terrorism. As it turns out, just like countries want publicity, even terrorists want to use Olympics to establish their power. And it started with a shocking incident in the 1972 Olympics in Munich.
They were supposed to be the Happy Games. But the attack on the Israeli team turned the Olympic Games into a tragic chapter of German history.
8 men in tracksuits hopped the fence at Munich's Olympic Village.
In the end, 11 members of the Israeli team were killed, along with 1 German police officer and 5 of the Palestinian gunmen.
And after the 9/11 attacks, the security cost increased so much that while the security for Sydney's Games in 2000 cost $250 million, just 4 years later in Athens, security expenditure shot up to $1.5 billion. That's a 6 times increase in cost in just 4 years. Secondly, from the time of bidding to the time of hosting, the entire economic landscape of the host country changes. In simple words, let's look at India. Pick any decade in the Indian history and you will see that the Indian economic landscape is completely different for every single decade. In the 1970s, the entire world experienced 2 oil shocks, because of which inflation in India shot up to 28.6%. As a result, we had an economic crisis in India. In the 1980s, we faced a balance of payment crisis where we almost went bankrupt. In the 1990s, we liberalized our economy and India was all about growth and development. From 2000 to 2010, we saw the 2008 recession, and from 2010 to 2020, we saw another recession along with COVID. And now, from 2020 to 2030, we already have the Russia-Ukraine war and the Israel-Palestine war. Eventually, because of these wars, the cost of commodities shoot up. Now, imagine if we decided to host the Olympics in 2008 or 2018 or even 2021. In 2008, we would have held the Olympics amidst the worst economic crisis in modern history. In 2018, we would have held the Olympics while India was still recovering from the demonetization shock. And in 2021, we would have held the games when millions were starving due to the COVID wave. And during this time, that is just after COVID, if I tell you that your hard-earned money is being spent on a fancy opening ceremony, how would you feel? Imagine that you are starving, but India is happily facing a loss of 10,000 crores in the Olympics. Would you feel good about the country during that time? No, right? So long story short, because of the unpredictable nature of geopolitics, consistently the cost of Olympics has shot up. And if you look at this chart, for Russia, the cost overrun was 289%, for Brazil, it was 352%, for Tokyo, it was 128%, and for Beijing, it was 149%. So even if countries take inflation into account, it is very difficult to forecast the nature of geopolitics. The third reason why the Olympics is an economic disaster is because there is a huge gap between the projected jobs and the actual jobs created in the economy of a country. And this is what the PR teams of 2036 government will tell you, ki bhai sahab, jobs will be created, economy will be boosted, and India's image will be transcended in front of the world. But I hate to break it to you that all of this is just economic delusion. Look at this table. In Los Angeles, yes, 5,000 jobs were created. In Atlanta, yes, between 3,000 to 42,000 jobs were created. But after that, in 1972, although incomes increased, there was no impact on employment. In 1996, there was increase in hotel prices, but no impact on taxable sales. In 2002, sales of restaurants shot up by $70 million, but merchandise sales were down by $167 million. In 2000 Summer Games, household consumption actually decreased by $2 billion. So do you see this? As time is passing, the impact of Olympics is fading away. So the Olympics are like the Nokia of the sports event, once a legend but now a loss-making venture. Thirdly, the economists and politicians often say that Olympics and World Cup type events will help us build sports facilities for the generations to come. Well, unfortunately, this is also impractical because look at this.
The stadiums cost about $1.3 billion to build and used to take $67 million a year to maintain. The new stadiums in Rio suffered the same fate after the 2016 Summer Olympics. 12 of the original 27 venues have not been used once since the Games and are crumbling from structural problems, suffering from frequent vandalism, and now home to infestations of rodents and insects.
And lastly, the politicians often argue that because of the deadline of the Olympics, infrastructure growth is accelerated, because of which the city is actually pushed 5 years into the future. For this, I just have one argument. Is Olympics really decreasing your cost? No. Is it giving you more money? No. It is only giving you a deadline. So my question is, will we speed up our construction only when there is an international deadline hanging over our head? That is impractical. And if you're saying that, we are incompetent. And just because we are incompetent with our deadlines, is it right to host an event that is going to drain billions of dollars of taxpayers' money? Think about it. So the moral of the story is that in the race of winning medals and the Olympic hype, the wave of nationalism should not result into an economic disaster in 2036. And lastly, even if all these arguments are put down, there is one little hope to increase tourism and getting FDI like South Korea because of Olympics. And for that, there is just one thing to be said. People marketing is the smallest element that gets you foreign direct investment. Because even if someone wants to invest 1,000 crores in India today, if we don't fix basic things like import duty, land acquisition and highways, no company would come to India. So one big event can give you a push, but in the long term, it's the fundamentals that will help you, not marketing. In the business world, as they say, great marketing doesn't build a strong business, great products do. And when it comes to tourism, the best way to increase tourism is soft power. In this case, just like South Korea used K-pop to change the perception of South Korea, if China and Russia spent over $40 billion into making Hollywood movies, it would change the perception of China and Russia in front of the world. So this is a far better, far sustainable and far more profitable venture to pursue than the Olympics. So while the Olympics is a good booster, there are much better economical and powerful boosters available in the handbook of soft power building. So we need to take inspiration from South Korea rather than taking inspiration from China. These are the reasons why, ladies and gentlemen, Olympics would be an economic disaster for India, and we must get our basics right with the ease of doing business, build soft power through international appeal of movies, and most importantly, we should not bet on the geopolitics of the world, because it takes only one madman to shake the world over. This is the economic outlook of the Olympics. So what is the moral of the story? The Olympics used to be a great investment, but it no longer is. Inflation can be predicted, but geopolitics cannot be predicted. General infrastructure building must happen irrespective of Olympics or FIFA. And lastly, everything that the Olympics can bring with $1 billion in loss can be acquired with a profit of $1 billion and with 100x better output. Examples: ease of doing business is far more effective than marketing, and soft power building over the decade is far more effective than one grand event. This is the dark side of the economics of Olympics that I wanted to present to you, and I just hope you learned something valuable from this case study. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.